and welcome back to the Orange Appeal. I'm Kirti,
And I'm Mahitza.
and joining us today is the Honorable Yvette McGee Brown, the first African American woman to serve on the Ohio Supreme Court, and now a partner at Jones Day. Thank you so much for joining us.
And we are so excited to have you on our podcast.
It's great to be with you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Okay, so starting off, we wanted to ask, there are a lot of firsts in your life, evidently, from being the first person in your family to go to college to being the first African American woman to serve on the Ohio Supreme Court. So I just wanted to know, what does being the first of something mean to you?
Um, the first, well, one, it's a real honor, I think, whenever you're the first at anything. But each time that I accomplish something, my primary goal was to make sure that I set a standard for anybody who would follow me. So it was really more about the work than being the first. It was work I wanted to do. I couldn't believe often that I was the first to that person that looked like me or the first person of my race to make the achievement, but it was really more about the work. And I wanted to make sure that if I was the first, I wasn't the last.
That's really inspirational.
And I love that statement. I feel like that's so much resilience that you've shown throughout your career when especially facing adversity. And
Yeah.
through that, if you were to talk about the moments in doubt along the way to get to where you are. And I was wondering, is there ever a time where you questioned your path or moments that help you push you forward?
Yeah, there were a lot of moments when I had doubt. I mean, when I was your age, I was so uncertain that I could achieve anything, right? No, I didn't grow up with a father. I had two younger brothers. My mother was a teenager when I was born, so I like to say we kind of grew up together. And I know a lot of my friends find this hard to believe, but when until I got to high school, I was a severe introvert. I mean, I had big, thick glasses. I had the unibrow. I was not an attractive young woman. And I was always the chubby kid. And I felt very insecure. I wasn't an athlete. I wasn't a cheerleader, but I was a good student. And when I got to high school, I found teachers that really just kind of pushed me forward and really encouraged me to lean into my academic success, which gave me confidence and allowed me to kind of reach out to my peer groups. But the insecurity and the doubt didn't go away after I graduated high school. When I went to college, I was around all of these people who didn't look like me, who came from different parts of the world than I did. And I think along the way, it's important to find a mentor, somebody who sees you for who you are and wants to celebrate you and push you forward and encourage you. It's really important to have a solid group of friends who have goals and ambitions. And for me, it was teachers. I had teachers who saw something in me before I could quite recognize it in myself. And so they just kept believing in me and pushing me to do harder, more challenging things. And I think that's the secret. Don't give in to the doubt. It's always going to be there. The first day I took the bench, I'll never forget. I put this robe on, I walk into the courtroom and I stand in front of my bench and I'm like, whew, somebody's going to probably ask me something I might not know the answer. You just got to take a deep breath and just push through it.
Right. Like, I mean, especially as high school students, we can relate. Like, I get that feeling literally just sitting in English class. I can't even imagine
Yeah,
like the Supreme Court.
yeah, I get so many doubts like, oh, should I raise my hand? And I especially like I'm sure like going over all of those things that you faced throughout your career, it must have been a lot of doubt, but seeing how you pushed through that is very inspirational to us. And something that you did mention before was finding a good mentor and finding
Mhm.
people that really see you. And do you have any advice for our listeners on what really helps make that group and people that are there for you and hear you?
What makes that connection? I think it's really important to know that I remember being in law school and how afraid I was to answer a question because I thought, oh my God, I'll be wrong, or people will think I'm not smart. And what you come to realize as you get older is that everybody's having that same feeling. So when you have a question, there's no wrong question, right? You just raise your hand and ask the question because chances are there are other people thinking the same thing. And the way to create your mentor group is you've got to surround yourself with the people who have goals just like you. I think when you're in high school, there's such a push to be popular, to be part of the in crowd. At least it was when I was in high school. And the strongest thing you can do for yourself is to not worry so much about this. I always say that high school is such a small part of your life. It's really important to find people who have big dreams like you, people that don't say, oh, you can't do that, but people who push you and encourage you and go, let's try to apply to XYZ college. All they can do is say no, right? And having that circle of people around you, not only who will push you, but the people who will be honest with you, who will sometimes say to you, you know, I really don't think you should do this, or I don't think that that person you're hanging around is a really good influence for you. Because I found out throughout my life that it's been those people who have been willing to say things to me that I didn't want to hear that have helped me get clarity around what I need to do next. Or when I'm afraid about taking that next step, having somebody say to you, you know what, if the only reason you're not going to do this is fear, that is unacceptable. You've got to have people that help push you out of your comfort zone, who believe in you sometimes more than you believe in yourself.
Right. And I think that's such a timeless notion. Like even 100 years from now, I think people can still apply that to like the people they surround themselves with and their support system. And I also
Yes,
think that a huge support system is family. I think for a lot of people that's something that they can
Definitely.
rely on. And we've heard in some interviews that you talked about how a big inspiration for you was both your grandmother and your mother. And we
yes.
just wanted to know, like, how have your relationships with women kind of shaped your belief system and shaped your routine in like striving
Get,
for
yes.
success?
Yeah. Well, I think my mom and my grandmother were my best and first examples of women who overcame just life, right? Because my grandmother is probably one of the smartest people I know, but just because of the time in which she was born, she never got the chance to really utilize that in the fulsome way that I have. And so, what I spend a lot of my time doing is reaching back to young women to give them the benefit of what I've learned so that they don't make the same mistakes I did. I think the best advice I got from my mother and my grandmother is that they told me they wanted me to be independent. They didn't want me to be dependent on a man. They wanted me to have my own money, to be able to have an education so that I could have a career and not just a job. And really speaking those words to me really emphasized to me that I had to play what I like to call the long game. Having a boyfriend in high school, well, I had a couple of boyfriends. It really wasn't the end game. I was looking for who I was going to be as an adult. And I think it's really important that as women, we support each other, that it's not just if you get something, then I'm denied something. There's a lot of things out there for all of us. And so we all have to be willing to support each other. The other thing, like when you said about having your family to rely on, I recognize that not everybody does have a family to rely on. And even with my own family, like when I decided I wanted to run for judge to be elected as a common pleas court judge here in Franklin County, it wasn't that my mom didn't support me. She was scared for me, right? And so sometimes our moms, our parents, it's not that they don't want us to achieve something, but when you're doing something that nobody in your family has ever done, they're afraid that you might fail. And so the thing that we have to remember is sometimes when you reach high, understand the people in your life, they may not be encouraging, not because they don't want you to do it, but they don't want you to fail. And we have to be willing to fail in order to succeed because that's how you achieve greatness. You've got to be willing to step at bat, Maybe you strike out the first two times, but the third time you hit a home run. And you've got to really believe in yourself that what you're doing is really something you have to pursue, even when sometimes the people who love you may not be your strongest supporters, but it's only because they love you and they don't want to see you fail.
Right. Yeah.
That is something I relate to so much as a young girl. Like my parents have always like wanted me to go and do a lot of things that are very not my interest, and going out and telling them, yes, I would love to do that and I want to support you guys, but I also want to try this too. And so it's really shaped how I've grown up and become more and more grateful to have them in my life and knowing that somebody cares about me so much. And a question that I had to
Yes.
follow up that is, but throughout my life, finding what sacrifices I have to make to take that risk and really go for it has always been a little bit hard for me. And so, seeing how many risks you've taken throughout your life, what would you say to anyone who has to make a sacrifice to go a little bit more forward?
Well, you first have to decide what's most important to you, right? Because sometimes the thing that you want to do most is the scariest. When I first ran for judge, I was 32 years old. I was terrified. And I had a friend, a very close friend, who said to me, I almost didn't do it. And she's the one who said to me, well, if the only reason you're not doing this is fear, that is unacceptable. And so the lesson that I've learned along my life is this: if you're thinking about doing something that's scary, what's the worst thing that can happen to you if you fail? Right. And so for me, running for judge, my friend said, what's the worst thing that could happen to you if you fail? Well, you think about that, and I'm like, well, I'm still going to be a lawyer. So even if I don't get to be a judge, I'm still a lawyer. And so there's confidence in knowing, like, if you tried this thing and it doesn't work out, what's the worst thing that can happen? And if you're willing to live with the worst thing that can happen if you fail, then you push forward, right? That's how you make decisions in your life. And when, I heard Denzel Washington once give an interview, and somebody asked him what his backup plan was going to be if he didn't succeed as an actor. He's like, there was no backup plan. I was going to be an actor. That was it. And so there's something about having confidence in whatever you pursue. It makes you fearless. And being a lawyer, having that education behind me, it makes me fearless. There's nothing I can't do, because if I fail at anything, you know what? I can put up a shingle, I can represent clients, I can feed and clothe myself because I'm a lawyer. And having that confidence gives you the courage to try anything.
Right. Yes. I think that's super important. And like you said, like being fearless. I think that is such a underrated notion to tell yourself. Like, I think a lot of the time we often back out after having one failure or one mistake. And I feel like maybe if people just like
Yeah,
tried
took more
to
risks, like
cover
what you
like what
said.
you've done, it would help so much. And
Yes.
I just,
You learn from your failures. That's an important lesson.
That's
You
so
you
true.
learn from your failures, because if all you ever experience is success, you don't learn from that. Your greatest lessons come from failure.
right.
Yeah, I've fallen on my face so many times, and like I feel like I learned so much more, like what you just said, than what I did when I got back and picked myself up. And I just wanted to ask, like, what is something
Mhm.
like your biggest failure? What is something that like really like tanked you down, but you were able to really pick yourself up from it and learn and grow so much more?
Oh, girl, I've had so many. I could take you back. I've been a lawyer for 40 years, so there's been some failures. I'll tell you my most public failure was when I was running for election to the Ohio Supreme Court, and I got beat. I mean, I didn't just get beat by a couple of points. I got beat by 14 points, and that was humbling. And I remember that night as the election results came in, I was like, whew, okay, so I'm going to have to find something else to do. But remember, I'm still a lawyer. But you know what? That next morning, before when I woke up that next morning, I had 3 text messages from people saying, we would love to talk to you about coming to work with us. 3, and it was just like 7 a.m. And so what you learn is that, yes, what seemed like a failure really set me up for the next success. And so I think, particularly now with all of this social media, I think we can be so afraid that we're going to look foolish or that somebody's going to say something negative about me on social media. You have to tune that stuff out, because really, if you fail at something, there's this quote from Theodore Roosevelt, one of our presidents from the 1930s. And
Yeah.
Theodore Roosevelt, he said, look, he said, the victory belongs to the person in the arena, the person who tries over and over again and is covered with blood and sweat and tears. That's the person who is credited with the victory, not the person who never tries, because the person who never tries never even gets a chance at victory. And I think you've got to think about that when you're reaching, like, as you guys are applying to college, you should have a stretch school that you apply to. Because my grandmother used to say the worst thing somebody can say to you is no, but keep reaching because you might get a yes.
Right. I think fear of rejection is such a huge one in our generation specifically. It's like
Mm-hmm.
if you make one mistake, like you think the whole world's gonna just hate you. But
Yeah.
Yeah, and everything's so publicized today with social media and everything. But I feel like putting this podcast out has made us a lot more less self-conscious on what we're putting out and more promoting ourselves and the people that we talk with, because I feel like it's such an important topic for us to share this knowledge, especially what you're saying, so that so many other young girls can listen to it as well and learn from it.
Yes, sometimes we get in our own heads, and that holds us back. I say to some of our young lawyers who work at the firm, like, yes, you're going to be nervous the first time you stand up in court or the first time you walk into a boardroom, but people can't tell you're nervous because they've never met you. And
yeah,
so, even though you think everybody knows you're nervous, they don't. Just take a deep breath, swallow, and walk in like you've been doing this your whole life. 90% of life is confidence, because nobody's going to know that your stomach has butterflies unless you tell them. Just push
exactly.
through it, walk in boldly.
Right. And that's like your resilience in doing something that like you've never had a kind of that representation for you before and being the first of something like we went back to the first question. It's something that has true bravery behind it, and it's something where like if that was me, I'd be so scared of failure, but you just went straight for it, which is really important, I think. And I wanted to ask, like, you have given so many young women and girls a chance to see themselves represented in our legislative system, which I think is very, very important. And we were wondering, did a lack of representation for you like push you to go into this role, or was it like a determining factor of it?
It really wasn't. It was really about the work. I wanted to do the work. And I was surprised there hadn't been anybody that looked like me doing the work, but it was the work I wanted to do. I really, like when I first ran for judge in Franklin County, it was to be a juvenile court judge. I wanted to help kids because I saw kids from my neighborhood. Look, we didn't have a lot, but I had a mother and a grandmother who put us first. So I never worried about feeling safe in my home or if there was going to be enough food in my home. And I saw so many kids who started life the same way I did, but they didn't have parents who put them first, who made them a priority. And I just wanted to help those kids. I felt like with my background and my legal knowledge, I could make a difference in somebody's life to keep them from ending up in the juvenile justice system, to keep them from being incarcerated. So it was never about the first, it was about doing the work.
Yeah, and given off of everything that you said, it's obvious that you have a really passion for educating younger women and
Mhm.
children in general. And I think it's super important what you're doing to help inspire the younger generation. And through your organization, Education Neglect Intervention Program, why do you believe that children's participation in school is so vitally necessary, and what can they take from that that can
Mhm.
further push them as an elder adult going into maybe a field similar to yours?
Education is so important. It is the game changer. It has been the game changer for me. My mother worked 2 jobs to take care of us when we were growing up. She had 2 jobs, 3 kids, and no husband. And yet she still pushed us towards the importance of education. And my grandmother used to say, you go to school, you learn everything those teachers have to teach you, because once they've taught it to you, they can never take it away. And so I think it's really important that we get an education, because an education is going to pay you dividends in the long term over your life. I had to go to college and law school on financial aid and student loans. It took me 12 years to pay off my student loans. And that seemed scary at the time where I was taking out that debt. But if I hadn't done that, I would never have been a lawyer, and I wouldn't have this great life, and I wouldn't have been able to turn around and put 3 kids through college where they have no debt. So education is really the game changer. It gives you so much choice in life. And what I want for young women, what I want for young people, is to really appreciate that life is so long. It's what I said to you earlier. If we get stuck in high school by making bad choices in high school is 4 years of your life. If you live to be 85 years old, high school is less than a tenth of your life. And so, what I want to do is help young women and young men prepare for their long life, to have the kind of economic freedom that allows you choice, that allows you happiness, that allows you to build something. Because when I was your age, I wasn't sure what my career was going to be. But the one thing that was really important to me is that I wanted it to matter that I lived. I didn't just want to go to work and go home. I wanted to make a difference in the world. I wanted to have impact. And if you have that drive and that goal, it's education that helps you get there.
Right. I think the pursuit to knowledge and pursuit to learning things is extremely important for
Mhm.
no matter who you are, no matter your age, no matter no matter where you are in life, always have that pursuit to knowledge. And we actually found a statistic that shocked both of us, and
Yeah,
we just
it
wanted to
really
get your
did.
opinion on it. So
Yeah.
it shows from multiple sources that 54% of American adults ages 16 through 74 read below a sixth grade reading level. And as because of your emphasis on education, we would just love to know your opinion on this.
And what we can learn from
Well,
it.
that is true. Yeah, I mean, that is true. And you look at women now, outpace men in going to college. Like this year, 51% of freshmen were women. And so that's a problem too. We need both women and men going to college. And there's this current trend as if college isn't important and education is for the super elites and people want to look down on them. Education is for everybody. I When I graduated from college at 22, I was a different person than when I started college at 18, because I learned so much. I learned from people who were different than me. I took all of these subjects that stretched my mind. And so I think as a country, America, less than 40% of Americans have a college degree. That's not okay, because look how technical the world is becoming. Now, I'm not saying everyone needs to have a college degree, but everyone needs to have a skill. We've got to figure out how to feed and clothe ourselves. We need plumbers. We need computer scientists. We need research scientists. We need doctors. We need lawyers. We need teachers. All of that takes education and training beyond high school. And we have to get off of social media. What drives me crazy right now, I'm gonna sound like the old person, is everybody thinking they can everybody thinking they can get rich by, being an influencer, right? Or having just a YouTube channel. That might happen for 1 in 100,000 people. But for most people, you're going to need to have a training and a skill to be able to support yourself. And I watched my mother and my grandmother struggle, and I was determined that I wanted more than that for my life. And so that's why I talk to young people all the time, because I don't want you. I see so many people like my mom who make a decision in high school that now they're an unwed mother. You know how much harder it is to succeed when you're trying to raise a baby at 18 and you haven't even raised yourself? I don't want people making those kind of decisions because they're short sighted. Because I always tell young women, the guy that you think is so cute, that's the football player when you're in high school, go see him 20 years from now. Those shoulders have dropped to his stomach. and he's not he's not that hot guy anymore. So don't make decisions based on how somebody looks at 16. Think about what you want your future to be.
Right. I think young women and girls, we place so much emphasis like, oh, you have to be married by this certain age, you have to have a boyfriend by this certain age, have your first kiss by this certain age. But I think it's just important to like find yourself and like find who you are before you start opening yourself up to other people.
Yeah, and I can really tell the difference.
At 100.
Yes. And I
Go
can
ahead. No,
really
go ahead.
tell like the difference of somebody who focuses on finding, like you said, finding popularity in high school and like going through all of that, or somebody who's really focused and they know what they have to do to get higher places in their career. And hearing you talk about like building the skills and the teachings that took you from one place to another and how it's super important for everyone else
Yeah.
to have that type of skill base. So I'm wondering, what do you use as like a young lawyer to really find a skill that really like made you stand out, and how did you use it as a building block?
Oh, that's a great question. So when I was in law school, I went to Ohio State, and when I was in law school, I applied for this job in the prosecutor's office. And I have to tell you, I fell in love with the courtroom. I just did. There was the courtroom in the prosecutor's office, especially. It was just busy every morning. There were people in and out. There were sometimes crime victims in there. There were defendants in there. And what I loved about it is these victims would come in and they were so scared, so hurt, and we were able to give them hope. Like we couldn't take away like the horrible thing that happened to them, but we could be their sense of justice. Like we're going to make this person pay for what they did to you. And for me, I just got so excited about being in that busyness. And if you had asked me, I was going to be a prosecutor my entire career because there was just something special about it. And then my second year of law school, I had this evidence professor named Harriet Galvan. She was from New York. She had worked in the Manhattan DA's office. And Harriet used to bounce around the classroom. And one day she said this, I will never forget it. And that is what was really like pushed me toward the courtroom. She said, I want all of you to get up every day excited about your career. I want you to jump out of bed excited about what you're going to do today, that you can't wait to go in and do justice, to make a difference in this world, to have your piece of it. And when she would talk, I was just like mesmerized by her. So it's really those two things that drove me to the courtroom because I was like, this is where I can make a difference. I can help people. I can be a good lawyer here. I can make a difference. And so it just spoke to me.
That's really
I love
beautiful.
that. That really spoke to us. I can tell.
Yeah. That's like honestly, I think like in your profession being a lawyer, it's all about having like of course there's so much like jargon and like legal matters, but if you really like go down to like the base, it's having a like good heart and like
Passion.
and caring about others.
Passion. Yes, whatever you do. I always say people don't pick a career based on money. You've got to have passion for it because if you have passion for it, you're going to do it well. And everything, like when I thought I would end up spend my life as a prosecutor, other opportunities came that took me in a different way. But each of those opportunities were things that I was passionate about. You've got to have a life that gives you joy. Work, a lot of our parents, my mom included, they went to jobs they didn't enjoy because they had to support their family. You are so blessed if you can have a career where it's something that gets you up in the morning, where you're excited about what you want to do. That's the whole reason for having education and focusing on a career and not just a job.
Yes, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I think we often take education for granted a lot. Like, I think especially people in our generation, our age, like you said, like everyone's trying to be an influencer now. It's like, okay, I don't want to go to college. I don't want to put in this work. I just don't feel
Mhm.
like it. But in the end, that's gonna hurt you. That's gonna hurt generations down the line as well, and you don't
That's
even
right.
realize it.
Yeah.
That You are so correct. And I got to tell you, college isn't just about studying, it's fun. Like I met some of my closest friends today are people I met in college. You know, I pledged a sorority. I mean, I had a good time in college, but I still studied. And so it's really about one being away from home, which is hugely important at 18. Like I, I, I picked a
Yeah.
college where I knew my mom wouldn't come unannounced, which was hugely important to me. And so it's really about having the experience of living on your own, growing up, studying, meeting new people, exploring the world and yourself a little bit, leaving the safety net of this little cocoon where you're in school in Dublin and seeing what the world is like. It's fun. It's not just drudgery.
Yes, I think I don't know if you heard like the Dublin bubble. I think a lot of
Hmm.
people we know live like that, but
Yeah.
it's important to learn about the world outside that too, and
Yes,
like have a more worldly outlook on things rather than just live in your own little like provincial
Yes.
space.
And
absolutely.
unfortunately, seeing as our time is coming to an end, I have one final question to ask you.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you had one thing you could say to your younger self today, what would that be? And if you could change anything, what would you change?
Well, I'll take the last one first. I wouldn't change anything because I honestly believe this, and I would say this to you and your listeners. Some Everything that happens to us in life is preparation for who we're supposed to be, even the unpleasant things. Because I used to all when I was younger, I was like, why don't I have a father? Why is my father not part of my life? And it's really the blessing is when I finally met him when I was 42, the blessing is he wasn't part of my life because it gave me drive and determination. So I wouldn't change a thing. Everything that happens to you is part of your story to prepare you for who you're going to be. What the advice I would give my younger self would be to have confidence a little earlier, to believe that it's all going to work out, to believe in me. I used to think because of my background, I wasn't as smart as the other kids I was around. I wasn't as pretty as the other girls, and so I was never going to get married. All of those thoughts that are in your head, I would say to myself, just be confident in who you are. The future's going to be great, but just have a little bit more confidence in you because it's all going to work out.
That's so beautiful. That touched my heart, truly.
Okay, we're gonna end the recording, but not the meeting, just the recording right now. But thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you guys later on the Orange Appeal.